There is a question that keeps returning whenever Princess Leonor appears in public. Who is truly closest to Spain's future queen? For years, photographs, public appearances, official ceremonies, military training, international travel, and carefully controlled royal events have given the world thousands of images of Leonor. Yet one part of her life remains remarkably difficult to see clearly: her personal relationships. And that is where the mystery begins. Is Spain actually hiding something about Leonor's relationships? Or is the reality much more complicated, a young woman preparing to become queen while living under a level of public attention that makes ordinary relationships almost impossible? Today, we are going beyond the headlines. Not to invent a secret romance. Not to claim that an unnamed person is secretly dating Leonor. And not to turn speculation into fact. Instead, we are examining something far more interesting: why the private side of Princess Leonor's life is so difficult for the public to understand, what the Spanish royal household has chosen to reveal, what it has chosen to keep private, and why the question of Leonor's future relationships carries an importance that goes far beyond romance. Because for an ordinary young person, a relationship is personal. For a future queen, relationships can become matters of public interest, constitutional significance, security, protocol, and even national symbolism. That changes everything. Princess Leonor was born into a role that most people can barely imagine. From the beginning, she was not simply another member of the Spanish royal family. She was the heir to the throne. Her father, King Felipe VI, became king in 2014 after the abdication of Juan Carlos I. Queen Letizia became one of the most recognizable members of the modern Spanish monarchy. And Leonor gradually moved from being a royal child into something very different: the future head of state. That transition matters because the older Leonor becomes, the more people naturally begin asking questions about the life she might eventually build. Where will she live? How will she perform her constitutional duties? What kind of queen will she become? And, inevitably, who will stand beside her? That final question has generated enormous curiosity. But there is an important distinction between curiosity and evidence. A photograph is not proof of a relationship. A shared event is not proof of a relationship. A person appearing near Leonor is not proof of a relationship. And an internet rumor repeated thousands of times does not suddenly become a confirmed fact. This distinction is especially important when discussing a member of a royal family whose private life is deliberately protected. The Spanish monarchy operates in a world where almost every public appearance can be photographed. Leonor can attend an official ceremony and find herself surrounded by cameras. She can travel for education or military training and still attract intense public attention. She can stand beside classmates, fellow cadets, officials, athletes, diplomats, or members of other royal families, and within hours the internet can begin asking whether one particular person has a deeper connection with her. This creates a strange paradox. The public can see more of Leonor than ever before. But that does not mean the public knows more about her private life. In fact, the opposite may be true. The more famous she becomes, the more carefully the boundary around her private world may need to be protected. And that brings us to the central question: is Spain hiding Leonor's true relationship? The most responsible answer is that there is no solid public evidence proving that the Spanish state or royal household is concealing a specific romantic relationship. But there is strong evidence of something else. The Spanish royal family has historically maintained a distinction between official duties and private life. That distinction is especially significant for Leonor. She is being prepared for a constitutional role, but she is also a young person entitled to develop her own identity away from constant public observation. This creates a tension that may become even more important in the years ahead. Because eventually, Leonor will not simply be watched as a princess. She will be watched as the future queen. Every decision will carry additional meaning. Every friendship may be analyzed. Every public interaction may be interpreted. And any future partner could suddenly become part of a national conversation. Imagine what happens if Leonor introduces someone publicly one day. The reaction would likely be enormous. Who is this person? Where did they meet? What is their family background? What do they do? Do they understand royal life? Can they handle public scrutiny? Will they attend official events? Could they become a future consort? What role would they play beside the queen? Questions would appear almost instantly. That is precisely why privacy becomes so valuable. The more the public demands information, the greater the incentive for the royal household to reveal only what is necessary. And this is where some online narratives become misleading. A headline may say that Spain is hiding Leonor's relationship. But there is a major difference between hiding information and simply refusing to disclose private information. Those are not the same thing. If a royal household does not confirm a relationship, that does not automatically mean there is a secret relationship. It may simply mean there is nothing official to announce. Or it may mean the person involved is being given privacy. Or it may mean that the relationship, if one exists, is still entirely personal. This distinction is critical, and Leonor's situation is unusual because her personal choices may eventually intersect with constitutional history. Spain is a parliamentary monarchy. The monarch does not govern the country in the same way an absolute monarch would. The Constitution establishes the role of the crown and sets out rules concerning succession. That means Leonor's future marriage is not simply a celebrity wedding question. There are constitutional considerations surrounding the marriage of the heir. But even here, it is important not to exaggerate. The existence of constitutional provisions does not mean that every friendship Leonor has is being monitored as a potential political event. Nor does it mean that her future partner has already been selected. What it does mean is that the institution of the monarchy has a legitimate interest in major decisions that could affect the crown. And this is one reason Leonor's personal life attracts so much attention. Her future is connected to the future of the institution itself. Think about the difference between an ordinary relationship and a royal relationship. For an ordinary person, meeting someone new may mean getting to know them privately. For a future queen, that process can become complicated by security. Photographers may follow them. Online communities may investigate them. Old photographs may suddenly become news. Friends may be questioned. Social media posts may be analyzed. And a person who never asked for public attention can suddenly find themselves connected to one of the most visible families in Europe. That creates a powerful reason for caution. Leonor herself has grown up watching what happens when members of her family become the subject of intense public attention. Her father has spent decades under scrutiny. Her mother, Queen Letizia, entered the royal family from outside traditional aristocratic circles and experienced an extraordinary transformation in public visibility. Leonor therefore knows that becoming a public figure comes with responsibilities. But she may also understand that privacy is not a luxury. It is a form of protection. This becomes particularly important when discussing the idea of a mystery person in Leonor's life. The internet loves mystery. A blurred photograph. A familiar face at an event. A person standing nearby. A repeated appearance. Suddenly, an ordinary interaction can become the foundation of an elaborate theory. But there is a danger in this approach. It can transform normal human behavior into evidence of something that may not exist. And once a theory becomes popular, every new photograph can be interpreted through that theory. If Leonor smiles, people may say she is happy because of someone. If she looks serious, people may say she is upset because of someone. If she speaks to a young man, the conversation becomes suspicious. If she does not speak to him, the absence of interaction becomes suspicious too. In other words, the theory becomes impossible to disprove. That is not investigation. That is speculation. A serious documentary has to do something different. It has to separate what we know from what we imagine. So what do we actually know about Leonor? We know that she has been receiving extensive preparation for her future responsibilities. We know that her public duties have expanded as she has grown older. We know that her education and military training have become important parts of her preparation. We know that the Spanish royal household carefully manages official communication. And we know that Leonor's private romantic life has not been officially presented to the public as a confirmed relationship. That last point is important. The absence of an official announcement does not prove the absence of a relationship. But it also cannot be used as evidence that a secret relationship exists. Both possibilities remain different from the facts that are publicly established. And perhaps that is exactly how the palace wants it. Consider the strategic value of privacy. If Leonor were constantly discussing her private relationships publicly, attention could move away from her institutional responsibilities. Every official event could become a discussion about her personal life. Every international visit could generate questions about whether someone was accompanying her. Every public appearance could be analyzed for romantic clues. That would create a distraction. The future queen needs the public to understand her role, her military responsibilities, her constitutional education, her representation of Spain, her understanding of public service, her ability to communicate, her ability to represent the country internationally. These are the areas where her preparation matters most. A future monarch cannot control everything the public says, but the institution can decide what it officially confirms. And that distinction has become increasingly important in the digital age. Royal families once depended heavily on newspapers, television, and official photographers. Today, the information environment is completely different. One image can travel across social media within minutes. A fan account can create a theory. A video can be edited into a dramatic narrative. A headline can be copied by dozens of channels. And eventually, people may encounter the same claim so many times that they assume it must be true. But repetition is not verification. This is especially important when the subject is a young public figure. There is a responsibility to avoid turning ordinary private life into entertainment. Leonor deserves the opportunity to develop friendships and relationships without every interaction becoming a public investigation. That does not mean the public has no legitimate interest in her future. It simply means there should be a line. And perhaps the most fascinating question is not who Leonor may be dating. The more important question is this: what kind of person could realistically build a life beside Spain's future queen? That question takes us far beyond internet rumors. A future partner of the queen would face extraordinary circumstances. They would have to understand that Leonor's responsibilities come first. They would potentially have to participate in public events. They could face constant media attention. Their family background could be examined. Their education and career could become public discussion. Their personality could become part of national conversation. And perhaps most importantly, they would need to understand that marrying the future queen would not make them king. Spain's constitutional system does not automatically transform the husband of a queen regnant into a king. This is a distinction that is often misunderstood when royal relationships are discussed. History has shown that titles and constitutional roles can be complicated. The position of a royal spouse depends on the constitutional framework, tradition, and the decisions of the institution. So when people imagine Leonor's future relationship, they should not imagine a simple fairy tale. They should imagine a partnership inside a constitutional institution. That is a much more complicated reality. And this may explain why there is no rush to publicly define Leonor's personal future. She has years of preparation ahead of her. Her life is still developing. Her priorities can change. Her responsibilities can change. And any person she eventually chooses may need time to understand what becoming part of that world would actually mean. This also explains why the Spanish royal household might avoid turning personal relationships into official news before there is a genuine reason to do so. There is another factor that deserves attention. Leonor is part of a generation that has grown up with social media. For earlier royals, controlling information often meant controlling official photographs and working with traditional media. Today, privacy is much harder. A simple photograph taken by someone nearby can become public. A private social media account can be screenshotted. An old-school photograph can resurface years later. A harmless interaction can become viral. This environment makes personal privacy more fragile than ever. And because Leonor represents the future of the Spanish monarchy, her personal life attracts an audience far beyond Spain. People across Europe and around the world follow her development. That international attention creates another layer of complexity. Spain is not simply preparing a young princess. It is preparing a future head of state who will eventually represent the country on the international stage. Her future relationships may therefore attract attention from foreign media, royal watchers, political commentators, and ordinary members of the public. But none of that means the public is entitled to every detail. There is a difference between public responsibility and private curiosity. That distinction will likely define the way Leonor's relationships are handled in the years ahead. And there is something else worth remembering. Royal families are institutions, but the people inside them are still human. Leonor may eventually fall in love. She may choose to remain single for a period of her life. She may meet someone through education. She may meet someone through military service. She may meet someone through official duties. Or she may meet someone in an entirely ordinary circumstance. The public simply does not know. And that uncertainty is not necessarily a problem. In fact, it may be healthy. Because perhaps the greatest mistake we can make is assuming that a future queen's life must already follow a predetermined story. It doesn't. Leonor is being prepared for a role. She is not being handed a complete script for her personal life. That distinction matters. The monarchy can prepare her for constitutional duties. It can provide education and training. It can advise her on protocol and public responsibilities. But personal relationships remain deeply human decisions. And those decisions cannot be completely planned from a palace. This is why the phrase, "Spain hides Leonor's true relationship," is so powerful as a headline, but so difficult to prove as a factual claim. The title suggests there is a secret answer. Reality may be much less dramatic. The palace may simply be protecting privacy. Leonor may simply be focused on preparation. There may be friendships that the public knows nothing about. There may eventually be a relationship that becomes public. Or there may be no relationship at all. Until reliable evidence exists, responsible coverage has to leave room for uncertainty. But that does not make the story boring. Quite the opposite. The real story is about how a modern monarchy manages privacy in an age when everyone expects access. It is about how a future queen can maintain a personal identity while preparing for a public destiny. It is about how the Spanish monarchy is adapting to a generation raised in the age of smartphones, viral videos, and instant commentary. And it is about the enormous pressure that can come with being born as the future head of state. Leonor's life illustrates something that is often forgotten when people see royal photographs. A photograph can show you a moment. It cannot show you an entire life. A smile does not reveal someone's private feelings. A conversation does not reveal the nature of a relationship. A public appearance does not tell us what happens away from the cameras. And silence does not automatically mean secrecy. Sometimes silence simply means privacy. Perhaps that is the most important lesson from the mystery surrounding Leonor's personal life. We should not confuse the palace's refusal to confirm every rumor with evidence that a secret is being deliberately concealed. Instead, we should pay attention to what is actually public. Leonor's responsibilities are becoming clearer. Her preparation is becoming more serious. Her role is becoming more visible. And as she moves closer to the future, the public will inevitably become more interested in the person she is beyond the title. But there is another side to that curiosity. The more people demand access to her private life, the more important it becomes for her to have a private life at all. A future queen needs space to grow. She needs relationships based on trust rather than publicity. She needs people around her who can speak to her as a person, not simply as an institution. And she needs the ability to make important decisions without millions of strangers analyzing every movement. That may be the real reason Leonor's personal world remains so difficult to see. Not because Spain has necessarily hidden a specific person, but because the institution understands that some things are more valuable when they remain private. And eventually, if Leonor chooses to introduce a partner to the world, the announcement will probably carry extraordinary significance. The person beside her will not simply be introduced as someone's boyfriend or girlfriend. The public will immediately ask whether this person can understand the responsibilities of the crown. Whether they can handle public life. Whether they can support a future queen. Whether they understand Spain. Whether they can live with the pressures that come with the role. And most importantly, whether they genuinely complement the person Leonor is becoming. But that moment has not arrived simply because the internet wants it to. Until it does, speculation should remain speculation. And perhaps the most intriguing part of Leonor's story is that the future has not yet been written. The girl once introduced to Spain as the young heir has become a young woman preparing for one of the most demanding constitutional roles in Europe. Her public journey is increasingly visible. Her private journey remains her own. And that contrast is likely to continue. So, is Spain hiding Leonor's true relationship? Maybe the better question is whether Spain is actually doing something much simpler. Maybe it is protecting the boundary between the princess the public needs to know and the person Leonor still has the right to keep for herself. Because a future queen may belong to the nation in a constitutional sense. But that does not mean every part of her personal life belongs to the public. And when the day eventually comes for Leonor to reveal the person she chooses to stand beside, the significance will not come from the rumors that came before it. It will come from the fact that she made the decision herself. Until then, the mystery remains. Not necessarily because someone is hiding the truth, but because some truths are simply not public yet. And perhaps that is exactly how it should be. If you want to understand Princess Leonor's future, don't look only for the mystery person beside her. Look at the woman she is becoming. Look at her education. Look at her military preparation. Look at her growing constitutional responsibilities. Look at the way she represents Spain. Because those are the clues that tell us far more about the future queen than any unconfirmed photograph ever could. The story of Leonor is not just a story about who she might love. It is a story about duty, identity, privacy, and the extraordinary challenge of growing into a crown while the entire world is watching. And perhaps, in the end, that is the real secret. The most important relationship in Leonor's life right now may not be a mystery romance at all. It may be the relationship between the person she is today and the queen she is preparing to become. That journey has only just begun.